Hello Neppers, it's me, Wild Neptune. This video going over the newly revealed balance patch for a couple weeks from now in Epic 7. Of course, before all that, appreciate a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Now, let's get into what's coming up. And here we are with the balance updates. It is 7 heroes, 3 artifacts, and 1 debuff, which is quite rare. Is not common. We get a mechanical change. So I have gone over all of these before, so I know what's coming. But just for the scroll a little bit too much there. But Ruel, Lionheart, Haste, again, Fire Tenebria, the Great Mortelix, Silk, and Suthin. Anyway, the artifacts are Rise of a Monarch, Dux Noctis, and the 4-star Steadfast Gatekeeper, and Restrict is also being changed. So let's get on to the first hero. First up is Ruel of Light. A long time ago, she was the dominant Soul Weaver in the meta. However, now we just have more and better suited options. So let's see how they changed her. And Key to an Oath, that is her S1. Amount recovered increases proportional to the caster's max health. Okay, I mean, sure. If you didn't know, before it was based on the allies' max health, where I actually always assumed it was the buffed version that's coming out. The fact that it wasn't before is news to me. So that'll be the change. It's probably a pretty minor change. Whenever this happens, you don't really see that much of a increase. And Light Pillar, which is her S2, now will increase the combat readiness of the caster, so of Ruel, by 25%. So it's basically now a Destina S2 for only herself, and not quite as good because Ruel doesn't get the EE. Now, to be fair, I do believe that Ruel's S2 does heal for more, and it does get the barrier too, so it is a stronger heal. However, Ruel's cooldowns are very long, and they're both single target heals, which has been the issue with her. Even if Destina's S3 is on a pretty long cooldown overall, just the fact that she has an AoE to do in a pinch makes a big difference. On top of that, Ruel is pretty stat hungry because she doesn't really get that bonus 60 ER that Destina gets with those 2 turns. Destina's Revive is AoE. And then we have like other Soul Weavers too, they just do other things that are more suited for different playstyles. It's just really hard to see Ruel working even with these changes here. Some things maybe I would have done is give Ruel like a speed buff, maybe on the S1 also. Maybe have it where her cooldowns were decreased. Maybe not on the S3, but maybe decrease it on the S2. Because right now, Ruel is one of those weird Soul Weavers too, because she lacks AoE heal. Touch of Rekos was popular on her back when she was being run. And that also means she's unable to run defensively oriented artifacts like Ice Crystals, Water's Origin, stuff like that, which leaves her susceptible to, being burst down a little bit more. To compensate, a lot of her wells were being built faster, so you were looking at like 210 to 220-ish was the range that some people were going for. But, again, this is just way in the past, and this is not enough to push her into relevance. Also, I've seen people say, oh, they should give her extinction bypass or something like that. I don't like that. I don't like it when they do things that just bypass other mechanics. Yes, like Extinction bypasses Revive, but when you get put layers on top of that, it gets a little bit too messy, and it kind of invalidates even having the mechanic to begin with. So I'm glad they're not doing that. Um, uh, we'll have to see how this pans out, but I'm not too hopeful for Miss Chipmunk Face. Anyway, let's move on to Lionheart. Lionheart has a couple of very simple buffs, but they are pretty significant ones. So the first one is on her S2 passive, the one where she cleanses on the enemy dual attack. She now will increase his CR by 20%, which is pretty nuts. This is one of the changes that a lot of people have actually been asking for. And if you're wondering, like thinking that Lionheart Cermia is a really good unit, she was a very good unit. Then she became not good. Then she became okay again. And now, right now, she's this weird spot where she's okay, but pretty punishable overall. And a lot of it has to do with either she's a little bit too slow, be it the CR push, or sometimes she doesn't do enough damage on certain builds. And this is what this damage dealt is being increased by. And this is kind of scary because it means you can just build up more stats on her overall, and she's going to be a pretty big menace, in my opinion, with these two changes here. Now, why did they do this? I actually think it's to get ready for Navy Captain Landy, as Lionheart Cermia seems to be primed to counter her specifically. So that's why I think this change happened. Right now, it is something for another unit that's not even out yet. And yeah, now does she need both these changes? I definitely think she needed the CR push. Maybe not the damage increase. That's a little bit much in my opinion, but I do think she's going to be a lot better and used a lot more. Next up, we have Haste. So, remember back in the day when there was a meme on when his Haste is going to get buffed? And this is like his third change in the past, 10 patches, whatever. So, he's been getting a lot of love, I say that, but his changes have been pretty underwhelming. And this is no different, because on his Envoy Scythe, now instead of stealing a buff with a 75% chance clip, it is now a 50% chance to decrease defense for 2 turns. And I'm going to assume this is his S1, and that's fine. Pretty good for PvE. And Vampiric Seal. So the cooldown is from 5 turns to 4 turns, and that's the change. So in any composition Case is in any form of PvP, it is always a cleave team or a very aggressive team that this cooldown reduction doesn't matter. You're not going to last 4 turns. So this is only for PvE, and I had to ask, does anybody use Haste in PvE? Does anybody use Haste at all? I don't know. I don't think so. And I know this is not going to change that. So let's get on to the next thing, and his EE is also being changed a little bit. So the defense chance is going to be increased instead of the CR of the caster. So we'll go from 50 to 65% chance with this S1 EE, and the equipment 3, instead of decreasing cooldown of Vampiric Seal, which is his S3, I believe, it will now extend the bleed duration instead. So the overall cooldown is still going to be the same, only have more bleed duration. And as we already know, bleed is the best debuff in the entire game. It's not. Next, we have Fire Tenebria. And I have to say, Fire Tenebria is one of my favorite heroes. So I'm excited to see what this is. And the S2 will now add Restrict on an AoE. And that seems pretty good. Now remember, Restrict is also getting changed. We'll get to that in a little bit here. And the Soul Bird for 10 souls is now increased damage dealt, which is fine. Canebria herself was never a damage dealer though, so we'll have to see how this pans out. And also, her S3 is now getting a cooldown reduction from 4 turns to 3 turns. And this is actually significant because Tenebria has the ability to cycle pretty fast with the way that her kit works. And her S3 is a very strong S3 as it gives both defense break and sleep. Also increases her attack. So, and also her imprint is also being changed from dual attack to effectiveness, which I actually do not like because a lot of her, the way it worked really well with dual attack chance. And I actually think this is kind of a nerf overall. Maybe they want you to sustain a little bit more here than kind of cheese out. So I guess for, you know, fairness sake, this is a better change. But for her herself, I don't think it is. Her EE is also being changed. So instead of decreasing the cooldown of Nightmare by 1 turn, so, you know, we can't have a 2-turn Nightmare. That would be pretty bonkers, honestly. She will now get Gab instead. And Gab on a unit, even a debuffer like Tenebria, can be pretty scary. So right now Tenebria is really only used in PvE. So I use her in Grass Expo. And I also use her in Nightmare Lab on the Vera fight. And also, I run a full fire Automaton Tower, and she's one of the units I use for that. And she's, you know, good at all those, right? But we're interested in PvP here, and honestly, I don't know how she'll work in PvP. She's pretty squishy, which is a real main downside. And also, there are a lot of cleansers and like immunity givers, stuff like that. So it's hard to find a spot if you don't have a built-in strip, which Tenebria, unfortunately, does not have. I feel if they gave her a strip, she'd be instantly usable, maybe. But we'll have to wait and see here. I'm kind of half and half on this one. We have the Great Mortellix. So his passive is now a 100% chance, which is a lot better. Because before, it was some lame RNG. And this alone, I think, makes him better. Well, obviously it does. I actually think it makes him viable now. Also, his cooldown of his S3 is being reduced by a turn to 3 turns. The soul acquisition is being decreased too, and so is the healing. This is fair because the cooldown is also being decreased, and the S3 is actually a pretty strong ability, as it also gives him the enrage and all of that stuff too. So it's a big stacking buff that you can get. Definitely good changes here for him. I believe this is his 3rd change overall, trying to make him better. And if you're wondering why they're doing this right now, I think it's for all the Soul Weavers and stuff that's been coming around and being dominating the current meta overall. Also for units like Lethe, where I feel that Smilegate wanted to get her another counter. And I think Mortellix is, the Great Mortellix is going to be one of those units that might see some play against her. And next up we have Green Silk. So way back in the day, Green Silk was one of those units that everybody got for like normal arena. Before anybody knew any better, people thought she was one of the best free-to-play rangers in the game. And to be honest, maybe she was. Doesn't see any play right now. So let's see what they're doing with her. So now her S1 is decreasing the combat readiness by 10%. Wait a minute. It's the same? Oh, no. Okay, so before it wasn't 10%. It was just 10% after the buffs. But now it just increases damage. Sure. And then her passive, she gains focus and when attacked, consumes a focus, dispelling one buff from the caster, and increases CR by 15%. When the caster stacks focuses 2 or more, uses automatic fire instead of a single shot. And automatic fire attacks the enemy with arrows, decreasing CR by 10%. Damage dealt decreases both the caster's speed, penetrates by 20%. This attack receives effects that apply to the basic skill, so that just means that the skill enhancement works on this passive right here. So much like MLKen's counterattack damage is affected by his S1 Molas. So, fine, I suppose it's a buff. It makes her better. Now, if anybody could actually tell me how much better, I'd appreciate this, because I don't think anybody uses Silk. For the 3-star, we have Suthin. He is a dark 3-star mage unit, I believe. And he is the brother of Arya and Ahmed, the kind of gloomy dark elf that was the new edition. So his change is going to be, instead of just increasing attack and effectiveness by 5% per turn, well, not per turn, sorry, after attacking, now also increases defense. And his Shadow Release now inflicts 2 burns for 2 turns instead of just 1. So that's fine. So what they've done before is, before a specialty change happens, and we are due for a specialty change soon, they have buffed or sometimes nerfed the unit that was getting ready for the SC. So they've done this with like Carrot, I believe. They did it with, I remember Axe God way back in the day it happened to. I think Falconer Cleary, or just regular Cleary at the time, got this treatment too. Ricorous also got it. So this is what we're expecting to happen. Now, am I happy about this? No, I am not. Like, who, oh, no, look at this. Like, let's just go here, and I have him, go to the journal here, and let's look at this guy's mug right now, okay? We are looking, and he's a 3-star, so he's all the way down here somewhere. Boom. So, this guy. Who likes this guy? No one. Like, what happened to, like, the Banshee girls? What about them? What happened to, like, Elson? Or, any of the other, like, early 3-stars? What about, I'm gonna, like, Adley? People like him, right? Why can't he have an SC? He's also a mage. Okay. And, that being said, because of the way that his kit works, he's probably only going to be a PvE specialty change. And maybe we're wrong, right? Maybe he's not going to be the specialty change, and this is just some sort of buff he's getting, where, by Smilegate's word, Suthin was originally designed to be effective in prolonged battles, but had low viability due to low base stats. No kidding. He's a 3-star. Now the artifacts. Rise of a Monarch. So the only change here, instead of increasing defense of only of the holder, it's now of all allies by 10%. And I think this is a small but fairly significant change, as it helps some defense scalers on your team get more defense, mainly Karina, in my opinion. And this is always one of those things where I've always thought about using this sometimes, but because it didn't give me the defense boost for my whole team, or had some sort of like whole team protection, I always shied away from it. I do have one that is a few imprints in, so maybe this one will see some niche use. Noctis, also getting another buff. This is the 20th time it's gotten changed, and the attack is being increased from 2 to 4% per critical hit up to 6 to 12, which is a huge increase. The stacks is less, from 8 to 6, but I don't think that really matters at all, because you were not getting 8 a lot of times anyway. So The only hero that really uses this right now is Commander Pavel, and that's really it. And I don't know if this changes much for him because he one-shot most things anyway. And also, Guiding Light also exists. And until something happens where, unless you're using a niche build or some sort of something like that, doesn't need Guiding Light, it's always going to be a trump card for every single ranger in the game. And then we had the 4-star Steadfast Gatekeeper, and they have just thrown the tower in on this artifact, so increases CR by 4 to 8% after being attacked by a skill that targets all allies. Forget about that. That's gone. And now it is a bad Sword of Ezra, that artifact you can get from Hall of Trials. So if you don't know, Sword of Ezra, I believe it's up to a 30% chance, so 15 to 30 damage decreased when taking damage from a elite or boss monster. And just so you know, that is also a knight artifact like this one. So it's not even like you can use them on different classes. That one doesn't increase defense of all allies, though, by 5%. So that is a slight difference. But if you have even a plus 15 Sword of Ezra, this is totally worthless. This is just a nothing change. This might as well not be an artifact anymore. But luckily, you can recall one and get the materials back, which I am going to do, and you should too, because this is total trash now. It is not even an artifact again. So kind of disappointed about that. And again, we have the restrict change, and now the restrict condition where you cannot decrease CR of restricted units is gone. So now restrict units, they cannot increase, but they can be pushed back. And this is I don't want to say significant change, because there aren't too many units that restrict right now. I guess Para and stuff like that. But the reason why the change is happening is way back when Bazaar was the king of the meta and Cerise was coming out. Everybody was afraid that Bazaar pushback plus Cerise restrict is too strong. So Smilegate changed it to the version we know now. And now they're like, you know what? This whole restrict thing isn't really a thing anymore. And so we're just going to change it to back what it's going to be in the first place. Are they going to regret this in the future? We'll have to see. And as if what I think about the patch, it's fine, I suppose. I'm not as down on it as I think other people are. I really don't care that much if they don't buff things like Trayron or Mo-Caste or stuff like that. Even though it'll be nice, I actually believe that Mo-Kairon should get, and also Mo-Haste probably, I think they should both get reworked overall versus getting buffed. Maybe that's what's taking them so long. Yeah, we'll have to see. Of course, I have a lot of pet units too. I would like to see buffed myself. Like Green Lilibet, Fire Ravi. Two of my all-time favorite units. I kind of wish they would get some more push in a certain direction also. But kind of everything. I do think that the Mortelix and Lionheart buffs are good. And also the Ruel also deserve the buff, even if it wasn't good enough. But then we have some things that make no sense, like the haste thing or the silk thing. Why? Like, what's the point of those? It doesn't do anything. And then you have Steadfast Gatekeeper. Like why even change it to be a worse version of an artifact that you don't even have to pull for? You can get it in the Hall of Trials shop for free. So yeah, because maybe I am kind of annoyed at this one. Anyway, I'm Wild Neptune. It's been a good one. Nep out.